economy will shrink in the course of 2023. And then weren't that different compared to many others when it comes to the inflation, because inflation is just...
But restoring price stability when inflation is high can require measures that are not popular in the short term.
I'm Christopher Crystal, and welcome to Financial Stockholm. Today is Wednesday, January 11th, 2023. And these are our views on what we're seeing in the Swedish press and Swedish economy discussions and what we're seeing going on. So with the new year, we have the new start, but the focus looks to be today or recently more around Ukraine and NATO and how it's going for Sweden. It's not clear when Sweden will actually be joined as NATO. We get signs 1 minute that it looks like it's done everything it needs to, and then we see the other signs saying it's not done quite enough. But that's it's up to interpretation. So what we do know is that the Russians are fighting in Bakhmut, and they are fighting for Soledar. We know that the Ukrainians have taken quite some casualties, and typically when the Russians do these attacks, they then pull back after destroying the infrastructure. So there'll be more suffering there. We do know that the weapons are en route. Sweden will be sending missile systems, as will the United States. It's not clear if Russia will have to fight against German tanks. There's a lot of speculation coming that people like Poland and France and in Sweden are speculating that Germany will be sending the Leopard tanks, but that's not clear. The United States, because Deutsche Welle is saying that they will not be sending the Leopards. The United States is not sending the M1 Abrams. They're sending more of the fighting vehicles, and we'll see what happens here. But the war looks to continue, and that's very sad for the Ukrainian people. Of course, starting with the invasion and everything else, but it's not a good sign for any sort of short-term peace negotiations. And Zelensky is fully committed. He appeared on the Golden Globes last night saying that it's not going to be a nuclear war and nobody has to worry about that. So that's from his previous statements where he was pushing for nuclear war, and now he's moving away from that. So it does look to be a long-term issue. The Swedish economy is we're still under the signs of inflation. You see the communes have increased their holdings, and that's really tied to inflation. So and we had the Fed visit yesterday from Powell, who was here in Sweden to discuss lending and the discussion of inflation. And this was probably also tied somewhat to NATO, but the Fed has been coming over here for some time now. And the comments that are most interesting were that the Fed said it is not to act as a climate policy, but to act as a financial policy. So those comments were interpreted also to mean that maybe we'll see an end of the rate cycle increases by the end of the year, but that we could see Swedish rates over 4 or at 4. We'll see what happens. And but I don't know, and maybe the US would peak out around 6 and then start to recede back down towards 3. And then this, of course, all depends on the inflation. I don't think the inflation is going to be receded enough that you'll see a decrease in the rates, but we'll see what happens. But I think the biggest news of the day has been with the Swedish government this morning. Our government, Ulf Kristersson, our prime minister, came out with our environmental minister, and they discussed in a press release the new position or stance towards nuclear. And what it really means is that we will probably have SMRs, and that was outlined and discussed because we can now have more than 10 nuclear reactors running at one time. We do not have to have the nuclear reactor only at a pre-designated nuclear reactor site. And then on top of that, we will only have one agency that the nuclear reactor company has to go through. And so this is all done to shorten the length of time to build out a nuclear reactor. Now, SMRs can be built within 3 to 6 years, and they don't need to be near the water. So these are natrium solutions. And if you look at the TerraPower solution, which is running in Wyoming, or not yet running in Wyoming, they're starting to build in Wyoming, and that's the Bill Gates project. This is a natrium solution. And this could be something that we would see here in Sweden, where you start building SMRs. And what this would mean is that you would have a sustainable energy grid and be able to offer companies a place to set up their business and operate their businesses, and offering this to companies like a Northvolt, which is wanting to build out its batteries. So, and then as we've built up a lot of these wind parks and solar parks, these would be ideal locations to build an SMR, because you could then take and drain, or not drain, but use the power lines that are already in place for these solar and wind powers to connect. And I think it's important to note is that in this environmental minister's discussion this morning, she mentioned wind and solar as part of the solution. Now they're looking to have their net zero targets by 2045 and have it achieved by 2045. Excuse me. But this will be achieved with wind, solar, and nuclear. And so the nuclear is the most important part. The wind and solar will continue to get investments. And I don't think they're really worthwhile using, but we'll see. In any case, it's a real positive. We see with Northvolt, that could be a very strong positive for them, because I think they've been in discussions on where they're going to move to, and where they would need to move to for their battery power plants. You also see that Klarna settled its discussions with Finans Inspektion this morning. And so SAS is having its Chapter 11, and it's flying. In the US, you have the FAA shutting down for the day, so that'll add increased chaos to the flight schedules. So I don't really see a lot of positive yet. We should get some consumer information tomorrow, I think. But overall, we're still looking. But remember, if the market's not going positive, you can make money going short, and you can always use options. So if you're going long, or if you're going short, long-term, strategic, these are all positions you can take and make money in the market. And so with that, we'll wish you a lot of success. Hopefully you hit the like button and subscribe. And thank you very much for your time. Bye-bye.